Yeah, good morning, all. Thanks for attending the session. And I think it's very close to my heart in terms of financial planning for kids with special needs. And I can understand the same being a parent for a special child. So that's one of the reason why I thought of that. Okay, it would be a good idea to share the experience how at least I am able to plan and how I can help others also in the same area in terms of how to handle the situations because one thing which at least I am able to correlate that it's more than financial. I think handling the emotion part of the investments is very critical. And the most important part, I think, on a planning perspective, would be that it is not planning for self; it's a planning for two generation. So the whole thing go for a different level altogether. So I'll try to keep it very simple, and focus would be on how I'm able to give some of the points which you can take to the your own individual level, and based on the requirements we can take it forward. So I think the first foremost thing when we're looking at the financial planning part, so first thing which we have to look at that we have to understand that our needs going to be different than others, and we have to accept the fact that we have to plan differently, and we have to think more for the long term perspective. So I think the first thing I always try to, whenever I had a discussion with families, I always try to communicate that first thing we have to accept the fact, and we have to be prepared for the future, because that is the something which is the most important part. And most of the time what we have seen that it's very tough as a family to accept the fact and take it, and it takes a lot of time and it impact their health, their financials and everything. So the only way to take this thing is the next level, that accept it and plan it so that you can do things in a much better way. So I'll start with introduction perspective that how we should plan in terms of the overall thing, which includes planning for any sort of future adversities also. So first thing is that we have to. I'll just try to give the points, and it would be better if you can note which normally would be the best way, so that at least you also go from the session with some points. So first thing, I would advise all the families that to find out what are the expenses which you are doing it, especially from a kid perspective, because see, the one of the mostly what I've seen that people do a mistake that everything they club together as a part of overall expense, what they are doing, which actually not going to help for the planning of their future. So first thing is that we have to uh, establish and prioritize our goals. So we have to define what are our goals which we are looking at. Then we have to look at our current financial situation, so which includes we have to look at all our assets, liabilities, what are our future incomes, and our expense. In expense also, we have to divide in two buckets: expense which are related to you and related to kid, because that makes you to give the idea in terms of what is something which we have to plan it extra, because the moment we club it, we'll not be able to realize the difference, that what is the additional we have to plan. The third step in the same comes that once we are able to get all the data based on the monthly expense, we have to come up that how much corpus we have to build for your own retirement, and second, what is the corpus we have to build to make sure that which is required to sustain his living, which includes all sort of expense. So that is only possible when we are able to make both the things separately, and then accordingly we have to plan on the different strategies how we should manage the money part. And the last part, which includes that we have to do a regular monitoring and review. Most of the times what we have seen that people just make one time planning, and after that they don't look at on a regular basis. So our thing is that we have to at least do a yearly review, that whatever we have planned, where we are and what is the thing. So I'll try to give a one point from the first part of financial planning is that define your goals and create a separate goal for yourself and for kid, and understand that it is a two generational planning. It is not just you have to plan for your retirement, kids education and this. You have to plan when you are not here how things are being taken care at the next level. So for that, we have to look at on the granular number level and get the data. So that's the first step, which we suggest that somebody needs to look at. It's a once in a lifetime exercise. Somebody needs to do it and do a regular review that how we are looking at on an overall basis. And what are the challenges? What we have seen that why it is important. I think one is the higher medical cost, need for a specialized care, because I have seen personally that the expense which goes on the either taking care of the physiotherapy or travel and other things, because everything you have to plan it on a very special level, because based on the requirement. And third could be on the educational side and other things, and most of these things, if you look at, it is on the higher cost compared to the normal scenario. So that is something which we always believe that we have to look at and do it very carefully. So what are the key financial planning concepts? Budgeting and saving. We have to track our expense and we have to plan and save thing. The next most important part, once you are able to plan that, okay, this is the amount what is required, we need to have an insurance. So insurance could be at a two level. One is we have to look at the person who is earning, because that is he is like will take care of all sort of actions. So the insurance requirement is going to be double of what is required in the normal scenario. So typically people think that okay, if I just take a 10 times of income as a cover, that is sufficient enough. So here we are planning for two generations. So now I would normally suggest that at least have a 20 times of income as a cover, because the expenses are going to be always be on a higher side. And secondly, the need will be much more higher, at least. So insurance side, we have to look at 20 times of a cover. Second part, on the health insurance side, so that also become very critical, that to have a very good health cover. So there are two way we can look at. One is most of the time people who are working on the corporate side think that okay, I have a corporate cover, so it will not be able to help on a larger extent from a future need perspective, in case if you change a job or you lose the job. So idea is that we should have a separate cover, but the challenge where it come for special kits, that most of the insurance companies doesn't cover these expense majority of the part. So first thing which we have to look at in that there are two three options which are available. Once which you can look at, one is the Nirmala health insurance thing. Then like Star and New India also have some special kit plan which can be looked at. But I think the most important part is that we have to update the insurance company. These are the health issues are being faced, so that tomorrow there should not be any issue during the claim. So most of the time, that is the one thing which we have seen, that even there is a waiting period or a higher cost, still it is better that we disclose all the details before, and after that take the plan. And it is very critical for the family in terms of the planning on that side. And secondly, take the top of cover also, considering there could be any sort of additional fund requirement. So three things which I would like to conclude on the insurance part. First is have a 20 times of income as a cover on the term side, so that at least you are able to build a corpus in case of any unforeseen event happen. Secondly, on the health side, take apart from corporate health cover, take individual cover, which so we have to go in very detail that which companies cover, as most of the company don't cover. So there are two, three specific insurance which cover certain part of elements of for special kids. So we have to look at based on a requirement, and take the top up cover also if we have. Third thing is that build one medical emergency corpus, because that is the only way at least to build and take care of the need, because health side we have seen that needs going to be on the higher side. Second, third part is like look at the government benefit perspective. So if you look at in India, predominantly there is not much of benefit from the government perspective. But I think one or two things which we should look at. One is uh, I think we should have a UDID card at least that can be helpful to get the benefits from the governments, whatever the benefits which includes on the travel, pension, or even a loan or education and other thing. So UDID card could be the one thing which I think everybody should have. Second thing could be that everybody needs to go through and understand what are their rights. I think the biggest problem today in India, what I have seen personally, that people are not aware about their rights, and I think government has passed the bill also on the special disability side. So I think people should go through and understand what are the rights they have, because many areas we have to fight to get our rights. So I think that is the most important part. Uh, I think which comes in terms of the benefit perspective. And the third part, if I think, if I look at on the health side, which I've already told that Nirmaya health insurance, which somebody can take it post health side. So I think first thing, take the UDI, have the UDID card, and second and third part would be go through that disability perspective, the bill what government has passed in 2016, to understand what are the rights, so that tomorrow, whenever any need arises, at least somebody can fight for that. And third is to take the any additional benefit which is required. So I think how to create a financial plan. So that's a basic thing. We'll just put it. First is assessing financial situation, which includes income, expense, assets, and the debt. Setting the financial goals. So there, which includes short term, and long term. So in long term, which includes not just during your lifetime, it would be at a next generation for them. Creating a budget, which includes. So typically, we suggest that. Create a different buckets based on the needs, because you cannot look at investment options only just which are safe. We have to do a mix of safe and high growth options also. So bucketing strategy is helpful to build a corpus, so that at least based on the time frame when you need money, you can plan that what is required at next level. And before I'll take it forward, yeah, we will try to look at that. We'll have a one poll and just trying to see that what you guys think, that what are the key points or a concern from a parent's perspective for the financial planning for the special kids. So can we have a poll? Yeah, so the poll is, what is the major concern for special kids financial planning perspective? So I think that's the always will be the key point before doing anything, because I think financial planning is not about just doing a planning. It's also about that how we are able to build an ecosystem which can help the kid even when we are not there. Yeah, so we will end the poll. I think the whole idea, what we are also trying to see and what we see that I think the biggest concern, what we are seeing that building a support system. And one thing, at least based on my experience, I would like to share that I think this is a always be not like a one time of thing where you have to always look at that. You build a ecosystem wherein you start planning it for future now itself, so that tomorrow you will not face the issue. To give an example, for example, where you are staying today, at least you have where your family member is staying nearby to you. So sometimes you have to start looking at and planning the things from the future perspective. Even from the job perspective also, you have to look at options where you have more than earning the flexibility. That is the most important part. Secondly, we have to look at that how we are able to have a good support system of the families and others who are facing similar issues, because everybody can each help each other. So sometimes it's about one is we think that okay there's a problem, and second is that we try to think that okay how we able to do things in a better way. I think that's the ideal way to take things forward. The next part which will I'll try to cover up on what are the different way and how we should look at the thing. So as of now we have covered first is to do a financial planning, do the budgeting and create a separate budget and assessing it. The next part which we have covered that on the insurance part of a thing, that how we should plan. And after that I think there are two key elements which comes. One is on the text planning part and another is on the estate planning perspective. So before that I will just take you on the most important part which we think that after we do a financial planning is that how we are able to build a corpus. I think to build a corpus, the most important part for us is to look at we don't end up doing the mistakes which impact our whole financial planning. So, what are the common mistakes which people normally do? First thing, we should not have a very high allocation on the illiquid assets, because which includes real estate predominantly. The reason is as our needs are going to be more on liquid money of part of other thing, and secondly we have to think that at the next level who will be able to manage these investments. So I think that's the first thing which we always try to communicate, that keep your allocation more on the liquid investment part. Secondly, we have to look at that along with safety, we have to have a growth also as a part of the portfolio. Because what we have seen most of the times, parents always think that okay, because this is the money from retirement and to take care for the kids at the next generation level, they try to be very conservative on their approach, and they keep majority of their money in every type of instrument. So the next part which we always try to look at that, instead of going with that approach that have a safety net, we have to look at the other thing also. One is the tax part. So whenever we look at any instrument return, we have to look at pre-tax and post-tax. Secondly, we have to look at the liquidity part and the return part also. So what typically we suggest as the best approach on the managing on the investment part is that based on our goals, what is the time frame we should look at put the investment. So any funds which is required for us after 5 years, we can look at to go mix of hybrid funds and the equity allocation, and funds which we required after 10 years, there we can go more aggressively on the equity funds of allocation. So idea is that create a three different bucket. One is funds which you required within next 5 years, 5 to 10 years, and 10 years and beyond. So money which is required within 5 years, there we can look at instruments like FD, debt funds, or equity savings type of a fund, which are have a low risk. 5 to 10 years, we can look at the moderate risk fund, which includes hybrid funds and which includes multi-cap fund type of a thing. 10 years above, we can go more aggressively on the equity funds, stocks, and other things. So idea is that we have to understand that risk is always associated with time. So any asset class, if we are able to give the time, the returns will different. So equity is not a risky asset class. It's only that it needed time because we don't know at which market cycle we are. Because if I look at the long-term returns from the equity, it is able to beat the inflation and able to give a 12 to 15% return. And for tax perspective, also equity is today 10%. Even after 1 lakh of a gain, it's a 10% long-term capital gain. So that way, post-tax and compared to inflation, equity always be on a higher side. So we should look at for our long-term goals, equity allocation. We should not just think that this is more to take care on the safety net, create a different bucket and do it accordingly. Secondly, have a one emergency fund, which will be a corpus, could be typically, we say that keep like a 3 to 5 months of a salary, but in all case, I think it is require more, so it will be includes any sort of a health emergency fund required. So typically, it could be between at least up to 10 lakh corpus. I think what typically we suggest that we should have as an emergency fund for any family, so that any sort of a need come, you don't need to take from your investments, because that's another thing. Most of the times, people do a mistake that. Whenever any need come, they take out money from the investments and that impact the compounding growth. So the ideal way is that you automatically build a corpus and that corpus are taken care separately. So learning from this session, I would like to conclude in a two-way. One is once you have done the budgeting, the next part you should do, you automate your savings and start doing the regular investments and divide your investment into a different buckets. And the last part, build an emergency corpus so that in case of any need, it can be taken care. And try to work with more with the asset allocation. So based on a risk level, it should be very well diversified. So which includes equity, debt, gold, real estate, and even the international investments also. So typically, we suggest that we have to look at all the investments and three things which we have to consider before doing any investment. First thing is the liquidity, that is the most important part. Second is the safety part. That safety doesn't mean that low return. It should be that we should not end up doing investments which can be default just for higher return within a debt also. Third part, return with taxation. We have to not look at the pre-tax return. We have to look at post-tax also from the return perspective. Next part I'll cover on the estate planning. So I'll cover two last part. One is estate planning and the tax planning, because I think these are the two most important part if I look at from the overall planning perspective, because the primarily objective of estate planning is that we take care of investments in a way that it can be handled at a next generation level much more carefully, and it take care for special need planning, because the most important part in this is that first we have to create a will, because I think the first thing which we always suggest that in estate planning is that without a proper will, then you can have a challenges, because the moment if you don't have a will written, the assets will, for example, if it's going to the special child and he's not capable to take care of the thing, so then it create a issue. So ideally, what we suggest as a plan on an overall level, what we should look at as a whole. First thing is that we have to look at we are building a legacy for the child, and in that case, we have to have a proper will written. And apart from that, we have to look at what are the key things which we need to take care through that will. One is we have to plan for two generation of our income. Secondly, this is going to be help for life of a special child. So in that case, we have to build a specific purpose for a specific need for the child. And thirdly, I think because in case of a families where there are siblings, so always that challenge come that how things will be handled in a way. So we should put a proper allocation within a sibling, so that tomorrow it should not create any sort of a issue in terms of allocation perspective. Secondly, the structure should be very viable, which should take care of the requirement the way it is required. So what are the way we can look at? One is once we create a will, so there are a lot of things which involve as per Hindu Succession Act. In case if will is not written, so it's always better that have a will written, then appoint a guardian, because I think that's another part which is most important, where a special child is there, because even after attending a age 18 also and before, it's always makes sense to have a guardian, so that things can be taken care on a proper way. The third part is appoint a caretaker. So sometime we don't want to appoint a one person. So one person could be a guardian, other could be the caretaker. So things could be different in terms of managing on the financial part and the personal part. So it's always better to define it much more structurally. The next part which comes is that the creating of the trust. So trust is the most viable option if I look at for the families with the special needs, because private trust is a legal entity where there is no individual owner. So and the child is the beneficiary for the same. And there we can appoint multiple trustees, which can include the family members, relatives, or friends, and trust level assets can be moved. So there are multiple way in which trust can be created based on the individual requirement. So the idea first thing is that create a will, and what are the things which we have to keep in mind while creating the will. First thing is that uh, prepare a list of all your assets and properties, including all sort of a debt and other thing. Put a clear intention that whom it should belong, how it is belong, and make sure that it is very well defined in terms of the percentage of allocation, and get it registered. So normally people have a issue think that is it required mandatory? So it's always better to get it registered, so that it cannot be questioned later part. And have two witness, because that is also the most important part. And witness should not be the beneficiary. So I think sometimes writing a will is a very easy thing, but the point is what are the key points which somebody needs to look at, that he should know, so that tomorrow it not create any sort of a issue as a overall planning perspective. So it's always better that you take a professional help instead of just writing an online will, because it's something which is going to have a long-term impact on a overall level. So that's the first part which we will always suggest that get it registered and thing. And the next part come the probate. So there are certain states where it is required that will made needs to be go through a probate. So which includes like a Chennai, I think Maharashtra and West Bengal. So these are the three states where it is required. That it needs to be get registered. So probate is a copy of the will certified under the court. So that makes sure that it is authenticate and it can take as the next level. So probate is not a succession certificate. It is more considered as that to create a process who is going to legal hire to claim the asset. So it's more like as a process to create the thing. The next part come creating of the trust because if you look at in simple words, trust is more like a creating a sponsor settle the money for the benefit of the person. So here, if you look at our idea is that from a special kid perspective, create sponsored settle where we can put all the things. So in there are two type of a trust which can be created. One is private and public trust. So typically, it's advice because the objective here to take care of the kids' needs. So it's better. It will be in the private trust, and there are three different way. One is revocable, irrevocable, and testamentary. So these are the three different type of trust creation which can be done. So revocable, which can be revoked any point of a time, and asset ownership unchanged. The income of the trust taxed as a settler income. So the idea of revocable is more that tomorrow, if any changes he would like to look at, he can look at. Irrevocable, the idea is that property become as assets become for the trust. So where from a safety net perspective, somebody is looking at, then irrevocable become more sense because once assets move to the trust, it cannot be taken out. So special child case perspective, irrevocable make more sense where once we have a clarity that okay, these assets are going to be for a next generation perspective and for their needs, which is not required for us, then in those cases, irrevocable become more sense as a whole. The third part is testamentary, which is created through will, where you don't create trust and based you have written on the will that okay there'll be a trust created and who will be the trustees and based on that it will be created and all the trust rules are written in the will. So idea is that to use will as a part of creating a trust and define the protection part for the minor child. But ideal advisable thing is that create a trust before itself, and if we think that these assets are not required to be used, then we can build irrevocable type of trust. And there will be a different taxation, so I'll not go more detail at this point of a time. On that. So I think ideal is that three things which we will cover here. One is create a will. That would be the first part. Second is appointment of the guardian. Third thing, creating of the private trust, which can be irrevocable or revocable based on the requirements and when we are building it, and create a letter of intent in terms of you define all the roles and responsibilities very clearly. So sometimes is much more better. So the ideal way is that we start thinking that okay, if we are not there, how things are going to be, and include all small part with clear roles and responsibilities, and have the discussion with the siblings or the family member how things needs to be handled. So these things can be done at a two level. One is that managed within a family level, or second is we take a professional help. There are organizations, there are NGOs and other who help and work towards that. So idea is that start working at the early stage so that later part we don't see any sort of issue on need perspective. I think just to cover up on this part, I think the idea is that make sure that our needs are taken care, and it will help us to get things done as per the requirement. Special needs trust, just to cover up first party trust fund where beneficiary on the assets, and third party funded by family and other kind. Pool trust managed by non-profit. There, these are the different type of trust. Government benefits anyway I have covered up, and the last part which I'll cover up on the taxation part, which includes what are the benefits which are available in terms of from the government perspective. So I think predominantly, if you look at major part of expenses are towards on the expense perspective. So there are certain sections under which these benefits are there. One is under section 80U. Then we have under section 80DD and under section 80DDB. So ideal way is that to look at based on the requirement one can claim. So there is the amount differentiation. So under section 80U, you can get up to 1,25,000 and 75,000 depending upon how much is the level of a disability, and expense are taken care in that case. Under section 80DD, again, it is available based on the disability certificate on the expense what we have done. So I think the most important part to avail any of the tax benefits is that first we have to understand that what is the level of disability. We have to get the disability certificate and certification from the doctor, and based on the expense, we can look at what are the benefits we can avail. The most important part, which normally I suggest that what somebody needs to look at is that we have to build a corpus for the kids, and that has to be built in a way that it can help them. And there are multiple ways which can be corpus can be given to them. But before that, I think the most important part is to look at what all things we have to do it. So to just cover up life insurance part, which is more critical than health side to cover, then have a disability insurance cover. Then on a long-term planning perspective, guardianship, which is most important part. Then we can have somebody who can look at on the financial affairs, future care perspective, or to have a discussion with family and members, and take professional help or groups or people who are with similar type of a need, so that you are able to build a whole ecosystem which can be helpful for the kid, and start thinking that how things can be handled when we are not here, because that is a very tough question. But I think that something will give the answer that what are the things which we need to do it, where kids going to stay, how their education need, how their health thing will be taken care, and start discussing with the family. So I think for special kids, I think more than financial planning, I think the emotional and the family level planning and building an ecosystem, that is the most important part. Third thing, do it legal part of a thing very carefully so that tomorrow there should not be any sort of a trouble in terms of managing that, which includes creating a will, creating a trust, doing a guardianship, creating a letter of intent, which includes all sort of a parts, doing creating a power of attorney to do on the execution part, and to make sure that all their needs are taken care. So there are different organization and support services which are available, and so we have to deal with multiple channels to take care of this, which includes organization services, advisors who work on this. So this is the overall thing. Now I'll take on the Q&A side and to understand what are the things which are there. I know it's a very lengthy and very detailed thing, and I try to cover up major part in a small way, and we'll have another session and detailed thing, but I think we can take on the Q&A and take the things forward. Yeah, somebody asked that what are the resources and support. So I think organization perspective, services perspective, there are multiple instances, and the financing. These are the three, four ecosystem which is required uh, to help. Yeah, so the first, I'll just go one by one on the question side. First is the points what we have discussed. So I try to keep it more, not to going more on the slides to give the thing. So I'll just summarize all the points what I have covered up on the whole session, so that you can take that as a point. First thing, you should do create a separate budgeting for the special child, that what are their expense, especially for them, so that you will be able to know what is the corpus which is required for them. So that's the first thing which I have covered as a part. Second thing I have covered in terms of the overall perspective, what are the things which we have to do. Second is have a good insurance, term insurance cover for the earning member. It will not be like a normal 10 times. It should be double of that, because we have to plan for two generation. Third thing I have covered on the health side. So as most of the health insurance plan doesn't cover, so idea is that to take a specific cover, which includes Nirmaya and some of the health insurance company like a Star, New India, they have some specific plan. Now IRD also has come up with the detailed guidelines. Post that, I think many of the new insurance companies also you can see coming up with the plan. To take the plan and have the top up cover, not just the normal cover, which is more cost effectively. Third thing, have separate emergency fund cover created, which could be 10 to 20 lakh of a cover, which is to take care of any sort of emergency need, so that you don't need to touch your portfolio. Then third part, I have covered that when we are doing investment planning, follow the bucket strategy. Because most of the time, what we have seen that people do are two mistakes. One is they end up having a higher real estate allocation, which is not ideal in our case, because we need more of a liquid investments and money which can be managed at a next generation easily. So that's the first part. Second, look at the investments which can give above inflation returns. So allocation to FD is only more from an emergency fund perspective or needs which are within 5 years. So we should create a three different bucket. One is needs which are there in next 5 years, 5 to 10 years, and 10 year and above. So any needs which are within 5 years, we can have instrument which can give lower return between 7 to 8%, which includes debt funds, FD, equity savings funds, arbitrage, those type of funds. Funds which are required 5 to 10 years, there we can look at hybrid funds and multi-cap funds. Funds which are required about 10 years, there we can look at equity stocks, going aggressively on other options of equity fund, mid and small cap, and other things. So that's the ideal way of doing the allocation. Fourth part I have covered on the estate planning perspective. So there, three more important things I have covered. First thing, create a letter of intent which includes how things needs to be handled. Have a guardianship who is going to take care once on a kid side, once he become a major and before that. Third thing, create a will so that you can have all things clearly defined and with overall allocation perspective. Fourth is create a private trust. It can be revocable, irrevocable based on the requirement. So we can look at creating the trust. And the last part into this, create a POA in terms of for the execution perspective, and looking at things, how we are able to manage assets at the next level. And from a tax planning perspective, as I covered, there are two, three sections which give the tax benefit, but it all depend on the level of severity and the expense what we incur, so that we can go based on our individual details how it can be looked at. So I think that's all from my side, and you can reach out to us. We can have one-to-one. So this session, I try to keep it more very specific and try to take it in a way that it covers all the things. We can have individual question and session based on the requirement. And how to trans so one of the question came, how to transfer immovable property into the trust, what will the implication and the charges. Again, it depends on the property value and the what is the objective for which we are doing something. We have to consult with legal expert who will be able to help on that side, so we can connect and review. But I'm saying that's the whole idea to do it. Somebody asked, can we create a MF account in the name of child? Normally, we don't advise in a way that tomorrow it should not create an issue in terms of managing part. So, ideal way is that you manage, and what we can do is you can create some investment pool. There are options like annuity options which can give the regular income to the kid at a next level. So we are suggesting that these are the better option, that till the time we are alive we build a corpus and we build annuity income process for them, so that can be used at the next level.